Hi folks, this is Karim Rao from IT Visualizer channel. Today we will continue our lab data transformers. The previous video we have been discussing the last issue or the last subject in the pfSense firewall. I was talking about how to configure a new virtual machine and put the system Android Oreo 8.1 to simulate an Android phone, so we can test our captive portal and the snort and the PF blocker NG. As we said before, the snort is a package to be added to the pfSense. It is an intrusion detection system, which is basically, as I said before, the first line of defense for any organization. The intrusion detection works on the packet level. I mean that if there is a user trying to access a website, the intrusion detection begins inspecting the website as soon as the user puts or begin typing the website and then beginning communication with the website. The intrusion detection system begins monitoring the connection between the user and the website. If it is in its blacklist, it will block it. If there is any suspicious activity, for example, if the website is trying to download some files that contain viruses, or it's trying to open some ports that it's used for hacking, or for example, the intrusion detection system begins blocking this website. So this is very effective method for preventing viruses and malware, because actually if you are only using the antivirus, then if, for example, the user goes to the website and then begins downloading a file that it is suspected to be a virus, then you are leaving yourself for the action to be taken by the antivirus system or software on the user's PC. But sometimes maybe the antivirus is not fast enough to quarantine the virus, so maybe you will get infected soon. So this is to have an intrusion detection and then have another or an antivirus. This is 2 layers of security you should use, and most of the organizations use this kind or this method. Every firewall contains an antivirus and intrusion detection, and actually also most of the users nowadays have both software in one, antivirus and intrusion detection. So this is for the snort, and we said that PF blocker, it is another package added to the pfSense firewall to block websites based on the blacklist and whitelist. We have discussed this before. And the captive portal, this is a system also, or a package added to the pfSense firewall, so that if any user wants to access the internet, he needs to provide a username and a password. And there is another option in this captive portal to provide a code, and the code you can make it with a certain duration, maybe 1 week, 1 month, 1 day, 1 hour, as you wish. So we in the previous video have created a virtual machine and installed an Android Oreo 8.1 to simulate an Android phone, as I said, to test all of the 3 packages, the snort and the PF blocker and the captive portal, and we successfully tested all of them. So this was the last subject to discuss concerning the pfSense firewall system as an open source that contains a lot of free third-party packages that also enhance its features and enhance its capability and add more features to the pfSense. So now we will close this subject and begin another subject in our the Transformers lab. Today we will plan or begin let's say structuring our backup, or plan a backup structure, or design a backup structure for our Active Directory domain. How to backup our Active Directory domain, what needs to be backed up, how we will back it up, with what software, how the backup job will be created, and also another side of this backup, or the backup structure, also how to secure our Active Directory domain by enhancing the security policies on the Active Directory, and some best practice security baselines from Microsoft. Microsoft has something called security baseline. This is the recommended security policies to be used by Microsoft. It is for for example, there is a security baseline for Windows 10, for Windows Server 2012 to 2016, 2019. So also we'll use this security baseline with another document I will show you now. This is a document also by submitted by one of the users that is subscribed to a very good website. I encourage you all to use. I will show you. This website contains, let me go to, it's on LinkedIn. Okay, also we will use a documentation from a website that publish itself or publish itself on LinkedIn. Okay, and also I will provide my best practice that I have been working in my production environment on how to backup and secure the Active Directory. But also this document is very good. It's also contains a lot of best practices. Some of them I used and some of them I will implement because they are very good security practices. Okay, and backup also. So let's go. This website is called Cyber. Okay, here is the website. It's called Cyber Security Hub. Okay, this I know I think this is only on LinkedIn, but this website contains a lot of best practice documents. For example, here is something for AWS and contains a lot of or the latest IT news. For example, the latest cybersecurity documentations and something like this. It contains a lot of things, the best or the latest batches to be used for Microsoft Linux. This is some let's say some commands to use. It contains a lot of things and it's very good for any IT admin or system administrator to use. So this website, there is a user that, let me show you the documentation. I also have uploaded this documentation to the Transformers folder, which I have already zipped it or compressed it and put it in a Google Drive link under the description of every video I upload in this lab. Okay, so here we get to Transformers. Okay, and here is the domain, DC domain, and here is it's called Active Directory Security Assessment. Okay, this contains a security assessment for the Active Directory, and okay, here is the author. It's called Hoyuka. Okay, and here he contains some of the best practices he sees to secure the Active Directory and backup the Active Directory. So we'll use this documentation. Okay, here he says, for example, that we need to backup the domain controller, the DHCP DNS, and then we will do some security setting to be done to the domain controllers, and a lot of things also to be done. So we will use this documentation as the best practice, and also I will provide my best practice list, okay, or the best practice things I have done in my production environment. So let's begin. Okay, first of all, we need to have a backup software to be used, okay, for backup to be used to backup our servers, okay, and to also through this backup software we will create backup jobs, okay, with different durations, so we can backup the servers in a specific interval of times. Okay, so now first of all, before going to this documentation, we need to install backup software to backup our servers, which will be BackupExec Veritas, which is a very popular backup software for servers, and I also use this in my production environment. So it's BackupExec Veritas 20.4 or 5. Okay, so here we'll begin installing this software, okay, and then after that we'll begin working with the documentation, as I said before, for the user, which is called Active Directory Assessment Security, ADSA. ADS, Active Directory Security Assessment, ADSA. Okay, so let's go to the video. It's maybe 16, 15, 16, 17. Let's see if this is the one. No, I don't think, not this one. Okay, let's see. Okay, yes, this it is, but okay, here you go. Let's begin the video. Here, let's first see something. Here we have our let's revise what we have done before. We have two domain controllers. These two domain controllers contain also not only the Active Directory services, it contains the DHCP. There is one DHCP here, and there is another failover DHCP here. There is two DHCPs on both domain controllers, and there is here there is file server, okay, on the second domain controller, and there is Active Directory Right Management Service or the second domain controller, and there is also for also not only that the Active Directory service, there is DNS here and DNS here. Just if you want to revise what you are doing, please refer to my or what is our Active Directory domain structure. Please refer to my earlier videos on what we have done so far. We have installed two domain controllers with a lot of services. Basically, what we are doing here, we are on our second domain controller, which contains our file server, okay, and so we will store our backup software here, so we can backup our users shares and department shares. Okay, so we will install the BackupExec here, okay, and from this backup here we can also see how we can backup remote servers. Okay, for example, if I have a lot of things, for example, if maybe I have 4 or 3 servers, how I can make a backup software and centralize the backup from one location. For example, I have here 2 servers, for example, how I can from this server backup the other 2 servers remotely. We will see all of this, but just bear with me. First of all, we need to, before going to the video, we need to download the ISO or the DVD that contains the BackupExec software. Okay, this can be done from the BackupExec. You can go to the BackupExec website and download a trial. Here we will download, or sorry, we'll use the BackupExec 20.6. You can go to the website and order or download a software trial for 60 days. Okay, this is a full function software. You can use all of the features of the BackupExec for 60 days. Okay, so here now we will go to the second domain controller, which contains our file server, and begin mounting the ISO image or the DVD and begin installing the BackupExec software. So first of all, let me just pause the video for a moment. So now let's continue our lab. Here we will begin the installation of the BackupExec. I will just copy the source, okay, and put it on my server, file server, or the second domain controller. So now we have already downloaded or copied the ISO image. Before that, we will do something. We will create a user, okay, and give it full rights. What I mean, let me pause here the video for a moment. The BackupExec will use a user, okay, Active Directory user, or a user to run its services with, okay, and also use it to access other servers. For example, if you want to for example, to backup a job here on this server or the first domain controller, okay, so you need to tell the BackupExec or to give the BackupExec an authority, okay, to access this server. What I mean by authority, I mean that you should give him an Active Directory users that have full rights on this server, okay, so he can backup all what he needs from this server. Okay, So we need to first make a user and give it full domain rights. This user, I name it backup bot. This user will be a member of tr_it, which is Transformers IT group. This group is a member of the domain admins, the enterprise admins, the schema admins, and also the TR also is a member of the administrators group. So as you see that it contains this tr_it group is a member of all of the Active Directory built-in groups which have full rights to the domain controller in general. So we will create a username and we give it a name, okay, and make it a member of the tr_it, which will be used, or we will provide it to the BackupExec software to tell him to use it when he needs to access any remote server, okay, to back it up. Okay, so first of all we will create the user, and also just as a best practice, it will be an service account. As I said before, we will use it only to make the BackupExec run its services, okay, its own services, and also to access other servers to back it up. Okay, so this username need to have a password to be never expire, okay, because if it expired for any reason, all of your backups will not work and BackupExec itself will not start. So you need to make sure that this username contains, and all of your service account users should be with the option of password never expire, and to take a note when this password, or to take a note that you need to change this user's password every 90 days. Okay, just as a best practice, you need to make your Active Directory user accounts to expire after 90 days. This is the best practice of Microsoft. This is done automatically if you are not using the password or password expire option on the users. The Microsoft Windows will tell you to change the password when the expiration time comes, okay, but if you use the password never expire option clicked or checked, then he will not give you any indication that this password is expired. Okay, so you need to make sure, or to count how much usernames that are used as service accounts, and take a note, and then take a note with the time that you have set the password, and then put 90 days, or after 90 days you have to change the password manually for these service accounts. Okay, so take note of this. So here we name it backup service account, name it backup bot. Okay, or you can name it backbot. I will name it backbot, okay, the username, and we will use this username in the installation, or give it to the BackupExec installation to use it as a user to access all of the servers. Okay, if he need to, for example, to access a server to backup something, he need to have a username that have full rights on this PC or this server. Okay, so here we'll put a password and tell him to never expire. And then next, and then finish. Here just we will put a description. This is the display name. We put a description of what this username does. This is another user that for the pfSense firewall. Okay, I'm just taking the name. Okay, I'll just see. Okay, backup service account for taking backups. Okay, just a minute. Okay, okay, taking backup on different servers. Okay, here we will make it a member of the tr_it. As I said before, this group is a member of all of the important groups in the Active Directory: the domain admins, the enterprise admin, the schema admin, and the domain admin is a member of the administrators group. So this tr_it is a member of all of the Active Directory most powerful groups. Okay, you can do everything with this when you are a member of this group tr_it. And actually we're just giving this to the backup. Okay, so we make sure that there is no conflicts that will be done if you use it. If, for example, user rights or something, it will not have any errors concerning the user rights. So now we will mount the DVD. We just right click on the DVD of BackupExec, and then we tell him to browse, and then we choose the English. So now before that there is a test to be done. If you have to click on pre-installation. This will check if your system needs anything before installation of the BackupExec software. Sometimes it needs some additional software, for example like NetFrame or maybe Visual C, C++, something, some packages that need to be installed before installing the BackupExec software. So he's now checking to see if you need anything before installing the BackupExec software. Sorry, I need to be in full mode because actually I can't click on the, because I am in the window mode. I need to go to the full mode so I can click on next, because I can't from here. So I will go to the full mode, then next. Then we will tell him to install it locally. I mean install it locally on the server, because you can tell him to install it on a remote server or another server in your network, but I will install it on this server, which is the local server, or it is locally. Okay, for example, I can, if just a moment here, I can tell him if I choose the remote option to install it on a remote server. For example, maybe I am putting the DVD here, but I need to install it on this server. Okay, so I can do this from here. Okay, so now he is checking all of things here. He's saying that I don't have anything missing, but this is called the simple disaster recovery feature. If I need to make a boot DVD so I can use it, a recovery DVD so I can use the BackupExec with it, I need to have something called ADK. Okay, but I don't need this feature. I need only the software to be installed. I will not make a recovery DVD. This is used if there is a problem with the system, for example, and you have a backup with the BackupExec and you don't have the software installed on this PC, so we make a DVD of the BackupExec and boot with it, and then use your backup to restore it on a machine that, for example, is corrupted or something. So here we will use the BackupExec and tell him to install. He will tell him to install the BackupExec. So now it's verifying, or it's checking that the BackupExec package or the DVD files are correct, and there is no corrupted files, so it's verifying the installation files. I think I can pause this because we don't need to check all of this. So now it had already finished the verification of the files. So now we will accept the license agreement. Sorry, let's make sure that I am recording this. Yes, I am. Okay, so now it's paused. Okay, now we will accept the terms of agreement, or accept the terms of the license agreement. It's paused or played? Okay, it's played. So now there is a problem also, the window for okay, here I need to okay, tell him next and then tell him typical installation. Then I'm going to install a single backup server that will backup itself and a few other computers. Okay, this is with typical installation. It will begin verifying the files. So now tell him next. So he is telling you that he need to have an internet connection to verify the license. We will tell him okay, because we don't have an internet connection, and we'll tell him to use the trial version. Okay, I tell him next. So we are telling him that we will basically use the trial version. He's saying that this trial copy has enabled many features that must be purchased as separate items or are not included as a part of the BackupExec. So he's telling us that this trial have all of its features enabled, but you need to pay for it. So here we will use the service account. We will use the account that we have created a couple of minutes ago. So this will be the user that the BackupExec will use to start its services and to access servers, remote servers, to backup its content. Okay. So now we will tell him to this user and the password, and next, and then okay, he's telling me that he has granted the following: login as a service and using the batch login type. Okay, so now we will tell him to install the BackupExec agent. Let's have a brief stop here. For the BackupExec to backup remote servers, for example, if I need to backup some files here on this server, it needs to install an agent on this server. Okay, so basically what I'm doing now, that I'm telling him to install the BackupExec agent on this server, or the domain controller, first domain controller, so I can be able from the file server or the second domain controller, so I can browse here or make a backup job and choose what I need to backup from this server. I have all of the contents of this server appearing here, and then tell him to backup, so he will backup this server. But before being able to backup this server, he need to install the backup agent on the server itself, so he can be able to communicate, or to be a communication between the BackupExec server or the BackupExec software and this server. Okay, so tell him add a single computer. Here we will browse the computers. And then we will choose our Active Directory domain, and then our transformers local, and choose our first domain controller, so to install the BackupExec agent on it. This is the way, or this agent is the way that the BackupExec Veritas software be able to backup remote servers or remote destinations. Okay, so here we will tell him this is the server, and we'll give him a username and the password. This username and the password should have full rights on the remote server. Okay, so I will tell him, we give him the same username that we have used for the service account for the BackupExec, because it's a part of a lot of Active Directory built-in groups that have full rights to all of the servers on, or have full rights to all of the servers in our domain, and computers as well. Okay, so here he is validating, he is communicating, trying to communicate with the server and begin the installation of the BackupExec agent. I think I can also pass it real quick. Sorry, here we can pass it quickly. So here it's ready to install the agent. Okay, tell him next. Okay, and tell him install. Okay, and then he will begin the installation of the BackupExec. He needs first, before installation the BackupExec, to install a SQL database. This SQL database will be used by the BackupExec to store the reports and the results of the backup jobs in this, and the logs also for the BackupExec in this SQL database. Okay, and then he will install Microsoft Report Viewer. This is a package that enable you to see reports from the BackupExec, something like Report Viewer as it says. And then he will install the BackupExec software at the end. So he's preparing or pre-installing some softwares before installing the BackupExec software itself. It's installing a SQL database for saving all of the reports and the backup jobs and the logs, all of this of the BackupExec software in this database. And then he is set up a report viewer to see the BackupExec reports, and then at the end he will install the BackupExec itself. So now we can begin using the PDF for the Active Directory service, or Active Directory assessment server, assessment documentation, the one that I have said before in a couple of seconds. We'll begin using it and see if to begin working with this documentation. I think I can also pass it real quick. Okay, just get a couple of seconds away. Okay, it's installing the SQL. Let me get here. Okay, it installed the SQL, and then and also restored the BackupExec. Now it's installing the agent again. I have already installed it before, the agent on our first domain controller, so we can be able to back up its content, but I have already installed it before, but I don't know it's installed it again. Okay, let me pass it. It's paused. Okay, pass it quickly. Okay, let's pass it okay here. Let's a little bit back here. Okay, tell him next. Now the installation has finished. So now I have finished the installation of the BackupExec. We'll make a restart for the server. Okay, just to make sure that this, after the restart, that the BackupExec will work normally and there is no services not running. You will see that after restarting that the BackupExec will not start automatically. There is some services to need to be started manually for the BackupExec software to work. Okay, so we'll do that in a moment. Just don't rush it. Okay, we will do it now. He's trying to access the internet. Okay, I tell him finish. So now we can restart the server normally. After any installation of any software, a best practice is to restart. Okay, and after also uninstalling any software, another best practice is to restart after installation or uninstall of any software. Here I'm just checking because after installing the BackupExec, there is a lot of services. Here you can see that there is a lot of services concerning the BackupExec. Some are running and some are not. Okay, so we need to make sure that most of these services are up and running. For example, the BackupExec server is not running automatically. So we'll make a restart and see if all of these services will start automatically, but actually some of them will not start automatically, and this is not something in the BackupExec software, but it is something due to my virtual machine, because in the production environment these services will start automatically without any problems, but I am having some issues with some services not starting automatically in any virtual machine that I use on VM Workstation Pro, and also in Hyper-V, but this is something related to the virtual environment, so don't get panicked. It will work, but I am just giving you an idea if any problems happen. Sometimes, for example, some problems happened with the BackupExec, so the first thing you need to make sure, or when you troubleshoot problems with the BackupExec, you need to see if the services of the BackupExec is up and running. Okay, so now we have already restarted the server, and then we will begin seeing if the BackupExec will start, software will start. Here I'm just checking some services. Okay, because as I said before, I have some problems with some services not running automatically when I restart the server, even though it's set to automatic. Okay, but it didn't start. Sometimes some services of Windows don't start automatically, so I'm just checking. Here we can see that some services of the BackupExec is not running. As we can see here, that when we start the Veritas BackupExec, it will say that it can't connect. Okay, for a moment. Here we can see that it's saying it's not connected, or the status, the services is not running, the BackupExec services is not running. Says at least one service, but actually all of or most of the services of the BackupExec is not running. So we need to make the BackupExec server, but first we need to close the software and then to start this BackupExec server service. Okay, so now we will go and start the BackupExec server. Right click and start. And actually there is another service to be started. It should be the BackupExec job service. We will see that now in a moment. Okay, here we can see that it didn't start, so we need to go to check the username. Here we can see that the username that you are using is the one that you have created in the beginning. So this is also some bug, okay, that sometimes you need to retype the password of the username and tell him apply OK, and then it will work. Okay, sometimes you need to type the password even though the password is correct, but sometimes you need to retype the password and tell him apply OK. This is only in the virtual environment, it doesn't happen in the production. Okay, so now we tell him apply and OK, and then we will right click and start. So now the BackupExec server service is starting. This is the core service that without it the BackupExec software will not work, and there is another two services, I will mention it in a couple of seconds, that also need to be running so the BackupExec software runs without problems. Okay, so here now it is running. So if we try to open the Veritas again, it will say that there is also another service, or there is a service that is not running still. Here we can see it's saying detecting services, and there is at least one service. Also there is still another or a couple of services need to be running, so we will go there and check again. We can see that, for example, the BackupExec management service is not running, and it is, you don't have to run the manual or to run the service that is set to manual. Okay, here we will start the BackupExec agent browser, sorry, the backup agent browser. We will run it, and then we will start the BackupExec job engine. This is very critical, and all of them are set to automatic, so they need to be it will start automatically, but for some reason they didn't start, or delayed the start of the services. So all of the automatic services or the startup set to automatic, we need to start it up for all of the BackupExec services. Okay, don't touch the manual startup type. For example, BackupExec pure disk file system service, we will not start it up. Okay, this service we will not touch it because it's set to manual. We will only start the things set to manual. Don't touch this, touch only the automatic. So we can see here is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 7 services or something set to automatic. So we will start only the services that is set to startup type automatic. Okay, so now we will try to open the Veritas BackupExec software. I think it will start without a problem. So here we can see that it's starting. And then we will go to the tab of backup and restore to see if our first domain controller will appear in the servers tab. When you install an BackupExec agent on a remote software or on a remote server, you will see this server available here in the backup tab. Okay, so you can browse it and choose what files on this server need to backup, and then backup it up through a backup job. Okay, here we can see only in the servers we can see that we have only our file server, which our local server is listed only. So this server is not listed in the servers here. We need to add it up, okay, here, so we can be able to back it up, to make a backup of it. Okay, so here we will go and tell him to add a server here from this one. We will go to the backup and restore, and then we tell him to add a server from here. Add, okay, and we will choose, he'll tell him Microsoft Windows computers and servers. We will use this one, and then tell him yes, the first one, and tell him next, and tell him allow backup to establish a trust. You need to have a trust between the BackupExec software and the server that you are trying to backup. Okay, so we will tell him yes, and then we will type the name of the server or the IP, or we can browse and choose it from the list like we are doing now. We get the transformers local. We can see that it contains all of our PCs and servers in our domain, so we will choose the PC that we need to back it up its files or something. And as soon as we choose it, the BackupExec software will install the agent on this remote server or PC, so you can be able to back it up and choose the files they need to back it up from the software itself. Okay, so here it will use the system login account. This is the account that we have created, which is Backupo, and then tell him upgrade if there is something. I want him to choose the restart the remote server, okay, because actually in a production environment you need not to restart the server without notification. Okay, so here I can just bypass. Here we can go one little bit further, just to make or insist on this thing. Okay, tell him next, and then in this option don't choose this option if you know, or if you are planning to restart your server, then you need to make sure that if you are telling your users, for example, this server will be not available for certain duration, then you can tell him to restart the remote computer. But in a production environment, I don't need, the server is up and running, I have a lot of things on it, so, and I didn't tell the users that it will not be available, so I will not choose to restart the computer automatically, and also it is not needed. As soon as the BackupExec agent is installed on the remote server, it works perfectly without any need for restarting. Okay, if there is problems that you can't back up the server for any reason, then maybe you should restart the remote server. Okay, tell him next, and then install. He will begin installing the agent, and you tell him to trust, okay, the server. So now it is installing the agent. This is for the third time. I have already installed the agent before a couple of times, but there is no problem, because it will see that the agent is there. It will only reinstall it, or it will upgrade it if it is there already, and there is a backup, or there is an update for the BackupExec software or BackupExec agent, so it will upgrade it to the latest version. Okay, here we can see that the connection not established. You need to right click and tell him to trust. It's already trusted. Okay, establish connection. We tell him to establish a connection. Actually, if you wait for a couple of seconds, it will work, but actually I was a little bit in a hurry, so I tell him to establish a connection and then establish trust. I have already started establish trust. we can see that it's working now. It's telling him never back it up. So now you can, I tell him already to trust, but I have already done the trust before. So now you can right click on it, or you can choose it, and then you can browse it or browse the server and choose what the things you need to back it up from this server. Okay, so now we have already our software BackupExec installed, the agents are installed, so we now begin working with the Active Directory Security Assessment document that our Huyuka, the author, have done for it. It's perfect, it's a perfect PDF. Okay, it contains a lot of useful things we will use, and also I will give you my best practice that some of them actually this PDF contains some of the things I use in my production environment, so it's very good one. Okay, so now we can see that he's telling you, first of all, we need to, as a security precaution, we need to back up all of our domain controllers, or to back up the domain controllers, the DHCP and the DNS and the PKI. Okay, so we will begin step by step. First of all, we need to back up our domain controllers. How this is done, we will see now. Okay, when we back up our domain controllers, this is done through the BackupExec software, and I will show you how this is done, but not now. Okay, we will bypass this for a moment. It will be in the next video, but pass it for now. Okay, so the first thing in our Active Directory Security Assessment is to back up our domain controllers. This is the first step. Here he is telling you, if you are not using any third-party software, you can use the backup feature of the Windows, and then he's telling you to open the backup. It's called Windows Server Backup. This is a built-in feature for Windows for backup servers, and he is telling you how to use it, and then choose what to backup or what things to be backup. Let me here have it for a moment. For example, here it's telling you to open its Windows Server Backup. Okay, let me show you this software. It is by default in Windows. If you go to the control panel on any server, you will see that there is something called, let me open the control panel. I think it's called Windows Backup. Okay, backup and restore. Okay, it contains something, but also this is not the feature. This is because it is on Windows 10. On Windows Server you will have something called Windows Server Backup. This should be added, okay, as a server role, or it's there. You can see it, and then you can use the Windows Server Backup, and then tell him custom, and then you will choose the system state. This is a couple of files. Every server, every PC contains something called system state. This is a couple of registry keys, a couple of very important system files. All of this are packed up, or it is grouped under something called system state. So in any backup, make sure that you select, for any server or any PC, you need to select to back up the system state. Okay, but also we will not use this Windows Server Backup, because we will use our BackupExec Veritas software. This will be done in the next video, so please pass this for now, and I will show you in the next video how to use the Backup Veritas software to back up our domain controller. Okay. Sorry, just a moment. Sorry, let's continue our lab. So now we will this is the first thing in our Active Directory Security Assessment. It is to back up our domain controllers system state. Okay, I will show you this in the next video, how to back up the system state of the domain controllers through the BackupExec Veritas software. So now we will go to the next step, which is to backup our DHCP configuration. Okay, we have in previous videos installed the DHCP on both servers. The first server contains a DHCP and the second server contains a backup DHCP or DHCP failover. Okay, these two DHCP servers work as a backup for each other, and also they issue IPs half-half. For example, the first DHCP takes 50% of the workstations and servers, give them IPs, and the second DHCP give the remaining 50% to the other 50% of the servers and workstations. Okay, so now the second thing is to backup our DHCP configuration. So now we will go and open the PowerShell, and we need to run it as an administrator, and then we will backup our server and we'll give it the location of the backup, where to backup this configuration. This is very useful because if anything happens to our DHCP server, we can retrieve our configuration which contains the setting for the DNS, the setting for the router, the leases or the PCs that have an IP address, the something like also the allow and deny filters. For example, if you are controlling which PC to take an IP, this is called MAC filtering. This contains the allow MAC filter list and the deny MAC filter list. All of this are backed up through the DHCP backup configuration. For the backup configuration of the DHCP contains the configuration of the server, the ranges that will be used for distributing to the servers and workstations, the reservation if there is a reservation for some IPs, the DNS, the router and the WINs, all of this, and the MAC filtering, allow and deny list. All of this is done. So we are virtually or typically are backing up the full server, or backing up the full DHCP server, okay, with all of its configuration. This is very critical because for example, when I was migrating to another DHCP, this configuration file was very useful, so I can make the new DHCP up and running. Okay, so now just what I have done, try to make the name of the folder that contains the backup of the DHCP server not to contain any spaces, because in the PowerShell the spaces makes a little bit difficult, or it makes him give an error. Okay, so now we're telling him to backup the server, and this is the name, backup DHCP server, and this is the name of the DHCP server and where to put the backup. Okay, so as I said before, this backup was very critical for me. I have already done before a migration to another new DHCP server with the same name and the same PCs and everything, but I have only just changed the domain name. Okay, and this was not an issue. Okay, so I need all of the setting, all of my setting, all of everything, except, as I said before, I have migrated from an old DHCP to a new DHCP. The only thing that was different, the name of the Active Directory. Okay, but the setting itself was the same, the ranges, the names of the PCs, the router, the gateway, everything. Okay, so now we will go to the PowerShell and run it as an administrator, and then here we can see that this is our DHCP. Now we will change the location to C Windows System 32. Okay, we need to be on this path because actually this is the path that contains, or this is the path that the PowerShell works from. Okay, but I think it will work. Just a minute, it's backup. Okay, we have to change to the C. Okay, and then we will back up the server. But I think there is a problem because the server name is not correct. You have to, it's be HP Gen 8. Here it's HP Gen Servbot 2. No, there is a missing 8. Okay, so here we'll put it and then tell him to enter. So now you can see, because we don't have a lot of configuration, it's already backed up. If you go to the folder, then you will see that it contains a backup. Okay, so here I'm trying to backup the first domain controller DHCP from here, but actually I will not do it from here. I will go here. We can see that it contains, the folder contains the DHCP configuration file. So I will leave it here. I will go to the first domain controller and back it up from there. Okay, I will go log into the first domain controller and then back up the server with the same thing I have done in the second domain controller. Here we can see that I have already logged in, and then open the command PowerShell. The same also it have to be done in, or right click, run as administrator. I think here. So the first thing we should do when working with the Active Directory security assessment PDF, first of all, is to backup the domain controller system state. This is number 1, and then to backup our DHCP servers configuration. This is number 2. Okay, so if you have 2 DHCPs like I have here in our production, or sorry, our lab environment, you have to backup both DHCPs. Okay, I think it will take a little bit of time. Here we can pause it quickly. I don't know, I think okay, let's pause it. Okay, so now we will just put an 8 and then change the name. I have already copied the line, or the command line, and then I will make another folder on the first domain controller with the same name. Okay, take care, because this folder, we will take it as a backup. Okay, we will back up this folder on both domain controllers when we will begin creating backup jobs on the Veritas BackupExec. Okay, so not to rush, but we will discuss this when it comes. Okay, so here now we are backing up our DHCP server. As I said before, we have 2 DHCP servers for redundancy and for backup. First domain controller contains the first DHCP server, and the second domain controller contains the second DHCP server, which is a failover, and the second domain controller acts as a file server as well. Okay, so now this is the second step. The third step is to backup our DNS. Okay, we have already 2 domain controllers, so we have 2 DNSs. Okay, they work as a backup for each other, but here there is a recommendation to take a backup manually from the DNS of both domain controllers. So we will know how this is done through the command prompt also for the PowerShell, and we will take those backups of DNS and put it in a folder, and also we'll create a backup job in the BackupExec to backup these files. Okay, so typically making a backup structure or a backup plan for Active Directory. All of the folders or all of the files that will be as an output will be created and backed up in a job, in a BackupExec job. Okay, so now we'll back up our DNS. Here it's telling us to go to boot the PowerShell, and then to type this command. It's DNS cmd export, and then the name of the domain. Okay, which is blah blah blah. We will see this in a moment. I will show you how we can back it up, or how we can do it in our lab. We will see that now. So here first we will go to our console, okay, and see our DNS, and then open it up, okay, and then open it back, and then here we can see that here we will use this one. We will back up this one and this one. We'll back up both, okay. Actually the first domain controller contains a backup of these two, okay, but we'll back up this and we'll back up that, okay. We'll back up both, okay. So we will open a PowerShell and also run it as an administrator. This is also very important, okay. Also the documentation tells you not only to backup but how to restore, and this is a very good thing. And this documentation is very detailed and very organized, and contains everything you need to do to make an assessment or to make a security assessment to your domain controller. It's a very good one, okay. So we will use it now. I'm just changing the name, okay, and we'll give it, okay, .local, okay. This is the name of the DNS zone, okay, and also we will give it a name. We will go and name it DSSE transformers.local. The name of the exported configuration of the DNS will be the same as the name of the zone, okay. Okay, so now we can take this. I will take the other line to export the second zone. Okay, this is transformers.local and MSDCS transformers.local. We'll back up both these two, this and this, okay, and then we will save, and then we will begin using these commands to back up our DNS. So in the Active Directory security assessment, the first step is to back up our domain controller system state. The second step is to back up our DHCP configuration, and the third step is to back up our DNS zones configuration, or the DNS configuration, okay, or it's to be specific, the zones for the DNS, okay. So now we have already export both of them. Where is the location of the files? It's in C Windows System 32 DNS. We will do this in the second domain controller and the first domain controller. So now I will go and go to the C, and then first he will make a folder and name it DNS backup. Okay, take note, because all of these folders, the DHCP backup and the DNS backup, we will make a backup job on the BackupExec software to backup these files, including also the domain controller system state, okay. Here we can go C Windows and then go to the DNS. And then you can see that these two files are the files that we need. So we'll cut it and put it in the backup DNS folder. So now we have done this on the second domain controller. We will do this on the first domain controller. These steps are telling you how to restore these files that we have already exported. As I said before, it's a very detailed documentation and it's a perfect one. I recommend it for you all to use it, okay. and he's giving some recommendation to backup, to have an offline backup. You can have an online backup. As I said before, we have 2 DNS zones with 2 domain controllers, but as I said before, this documentation I will use it as a best practice, because some of these best practices I have already implemented it in my production environment, but there is some new things that he have already pointed it up. Okay, one of them, for example, is the for example, if you have an authority server, certification authority server, you need to back up the certifications for this server. Okay, actually I have one, but we will see this, how this is done. For example, here he is saying that the domain service recovery account, there is something when you set up the Active Directory services on the domain controller, there is a password that you use it to recover the domain controller when something is happening. It's called domain services recovery account. Okay, this password is set for one time, and I didn't change this password, or it is not having a password expiry date, so you need to take care and change it every now and then. We will see that now in a moment. We will not hurry. Just here is saying that you have a certificate authority server, you need to back up the certifications. Okay, but actually I don't have a certificate authority server, I think. Well, I will pass this for a moment. Okay, I think I will not use it now. Here I am seeing that I have my certification, but this is not a certification server, this is the local certification. Here I'm trying to see if I have a certification server. I don't have a certification server. So now I will pass this for a moment. Also for this certification server, I will pass it until I see how I think I don't have a certification server in my Active Directory. So now here we have passed all of our, as I said before, this documentation. First thing is to, in the Active Directory, as a security assessment, is to have backup of the domain controller system state, the DHCP configuration, the DNS configuration, and the certification authority certifications if you have a certification authority server. The next step is to harden or to increase the security of your domain controller. Okay, how this is done? Through the group policy. Okay, you have something called the default domain controllers policy. Here is some recommendation from this guy on how or which group policies items to be enabled or disabled. Okay, so you can use them. Okay, we will see, also we will discuss that in the next video, but here is some recommendation of what to disable or enable on your default domain controllers policy to increase the security of your domain controller. Okay, I will discuss this in the second video, but actually here I am concentrating more on the backup of the configuration of the domain controller. Okay, and the DHCP and the DNS. Also, this is the main thing I am concentrating on now. Okay, in the next video I'll begin discussing the security, the group policy security items to be enabled or disabled on the domain controller to increase its security. Okay, here is saying that there is some services you need to disable. First of all, you need to have some best practice security policy, group policy options enabled, and then you need to disable the unnecessary services on the domain controller. Here I don't have an Xbox or printer spooler. You can, if you don't print anything on the domain controller, you can disable the printer spooler. This is the service, it is responsible for printing. So if you're not printing anything on the server, you can disable this service. And if you has an Xbox, but actually I tried to search here, I didn't find any Xbox, okay? So I didn't disable it, and actually the printer spooler I didn't disable it as well. But it's good also because actually we don't print, but sometimes there is some servers that use the print spooler service, okay? So I didn't disable the printer spooler, and actually I didn't find the Xbox Live auth, didn't find any services concerning the Xbox on my servers, okay? So here now he is telling you to check the backup. If you have a backup of the domain controller, make sure that the backup is taking successfully every day, okay? He's concentrating on this, okay? And here is the way, some best practice things here. This is the service account. He says that you should reset the password. It's called KRBGBT. I don't know this account actually, but he says that it need to be reset every now and then. Here is the one that I found useful. Here is something called the directory service restore mode. This is a password that you use when for example, if there is a corruption in the domain controller, you go in for example, you restart the server and then press F8. You will go something in a mode called directory service restore mode, something like the safe mode on Windows 10, okay? You access this mode with a username and the password, and then you try to recover your domain controller from this mode, okay? This password is set for once, and actually the domain controller or the Active Directory doesn't expire this password, okay? Or didn't give it an expiry date. So you need to make sure that this password is changed regularly, okay? So no one, if he for example, if a hacker knows this password, so then he can go to the safe mode or connect remotely and then begin working with the directory service restore mode and then begin hacking with this password, okay? This also have full rights. This password have full rights on the domain, so you need to change this password. As I said before, it's like a breast glass account. You need to define a password for the account. So you need to make sure this is a local administrator, okay? So this password is a local admin on your domain controller. So you need to make sure that this account is password is changed. You can't disable it, okay? Because it's still needed when there is a problem with the domain controller setting and you need to recover something. You need this account to be enabled, okay? So here we will begin the process of changing this password. Actually, I have started this lab or started the setup of the both domain controllers from 30 days. So now we will go and change the password for the DSRM, okay? Actually, this is very useful. He is setting up some points, or he's clarifying or pointing out some points that is very useful, okay? So now we will open the command prompt of the server and then we will begin typing the following commands or these commands in front of you. So here we will go to we need to run also the command prompt with administrator rights, okay? I will close here. I try to see if I can run the command prompt from here, but actually I need to open the start. You can tell him run and then cmd. This task will be created with administrative privileges, so you don't need to right click and run as administrator. Here we will go to, I prefer to be on the C drive root, okay? cd 2 dots. This will get you to the command. Okay, I prefer to be on C Windows System 32, okay? And then I will use the ntds. This is the command that you will first use, and then press enter. You need to put the password for the Active Directory remote management, the one that we have. This password we need to put, sorry, little bit back here. We need to put this password, okay, that we have done in first installation of the Active Directory service, okay. So we put the old password and then we tell him to reset the password and then which server, okay. Just a minute, you will see now. And then, sorry, I think I am making it again. So now then we will type the command again. I'll make this video will be of a couple of parts. This is the first part. This is part 1. I think there will be part 2 or part 3 until we finish all of the PDF, okay, of the PDF of the Active Directory Security Assessment, okay. So we now have already reset. Sorry, we need to put, we tell him to reset password on HP Gen 8 server. Here is the name of the server. This is the domain controller. Okay, then he tells you to put the new password. Then confirm the password. And then he telling you to then you should type quit after that and then enter and then quit again, okay. This is how to change the DSRM, our domain services recovery management password, or management user account, okay. And this is also, I said before, it is used to access the server of the domain controller in like a safe mode and use it to recover if anything happens to the domain controller. You can use this mode to recover the domain controller with. So now we have done this on the first, or sorry, the second domain controller. We'll do this also on the first domain controller. We will repeat the steps. Okay, here we go. We'll do this again. Sorry, we can type it back. Here we can see that we have done the same on the first domain controller. The same, okay. So now actually we have go in the PDF of the Active Directory Security Assessment. We have finished the backup section and then the hardening part of the hardening section. We are in the second point in the hardening system. Now I am just shutting down the domain controllers, and then we will begin the next video. We will begin discussing or we will continue working with the Active Directory Security Assessment PDF, and we'll begin implementing more and more things in this PDF. And until I see you all, hope this video was informative for you all, and I would like to thank you for viewing. Thank you so much. Here I'm just noting that I am in page 34, just to make sure. Just remember with me, we are in page number 34. Thank you so much. Now we are, this is some recommendation. We will discuss this in the next video. Okay, so we are in page 34. Thank you so much.